We do appreciate those that did take the seats in the front. There's prizes for all of you. Welcome to the New Canaan Public Schools. I am Jill Prenti. I am the Deputy Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. And it is so nice to have this event back in person. So we are so excited to have all of you join us today. And we'd love to just start off with a quick little raise of hands. How many of you will be attending East next year? How many of you will be attending West? South? So it's pretty evenly distributed. Now the next question, how many of you already have an elementary school child at school? How many of you have a middle schooler? High schooler? All right, there's definitely a prize for you. And how many of you, this is your first experience coming to the New Canaan Public Schools? Well, welcome to all of you. This is the first event of many to come, and we call it our Transition to Kindergarten meeting, so that you have an opportunity to hear from our elementary principals, as well as some of our curriculum coordinators who are here today to share a lot of information. It's also a wonderful transition meeting because many of you have heard and know Judy Phillips from New Canaan Cares, and you've probably attended presentations at New Canaan Cares on countless topics. And so it's a nice way for Judy to also welcome all of you. We do continue to work with New Canaan Cares K through 12, and they do have a tremendous amount of support for all of our parent programs here in the New Canaan Public Schools. So I do want to just introduce everyone. We have Judy Phillips from New Canaan Cares. We have Jan Murphy, the principal at West. Chris Wallach, the principal from East. Matt Kasich, the principal from South. And then in the back row, we have Nicole Graham. Nicole serves as our K through 8 math coordinator, and she has put together a brochure for all of you on ways that you can help your child get started. Karen Scalzo, who is our K through 5 reading coordinator. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, Karen. Writing coordinator. I was thinking ahead because our reading coordinator is not here today. We have Maura Fruin, who is the assistant principal at East, who will be sharing some ways that you can get your child excited about reading. Kathy Grimes is our K through 4 reading coordinator, who unfortunately is not here today with us, but she is on the brochure and her contact information there as well. So without further ado, I would like to get us started on our presentation today, and I'm going to introduce Judy Phillips.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and welcome everybody. This is super exciting for me this morning. I joined New Canaan Cares in September of 2020 in the height of COVID, so it's my first time with this incredible group of people live and in person. So it's kind of fun for me to do this for the first time with a live audience. And I'm going to apologize to some of you who have heard most of this before. There's some updates, but this is aimed for the new parents and a refresher for those of you who have been through this before, because it changes every time with every child. There we go. So I am the mom of now 16-year-old twin boys. I've been through this. As you see, they were super confident kindergartners. They didn't want anything to do with us on their day off. They're like, bye mom, keep up if you can, right? So fast forward, they are now juniors in high school and even more independent than ever, and their goodbye now comes from the car. Okay? So you will survive. So let's start at the very beginning. You're the parent, right? And I want to say, this is super impressive to see the mix of parents in this room today, both the mothers and the fathers. We were saying we were doing this via webinar, so we could tell who was in the audience the past 2 years. And it's encouraging to see both mothers and fathers in the room today. And you as parents, as a team, whatever your makeup is, you set the tone for your family. So if you are anxious and scared about sending your child off to kindergarten, guess what? Your child's going to be anxious and scared along with you. But if you have a positive tone, more than likely they will. Now that's not a guarantee, because we all know our kids are going to do what we don't want them to do. But take a perspective check, look in the mirror, and say, what signals am I sending out? Am I sending out what I want to say? Right? That's where you're going to start. It's going to start with you. Know that this is just a small blip, a moment in time. It's going to pass, right? And I'm going to say this over and over. It's normal, right? Tell me, like 95% of what you see, it's normal, in the range of normal. Very little surprises you these days, right? Refrain from comparing your kids. There are any number of you in the room, from high schoolers on down. Don't compare your kids to one another. Don't compare your kids to other kids. And for heaven's sakes, realize that social media is not your friend right now, right? When you see those first day of school pictures and your child is running off, refusing to take the picture, right? They don't want to put on their first day of school clothes, but you see sweet little Maddie posing in her little outfit, right? Right? With her backpack on, looking all together, right? And you're like, oh man, why can't my kid do that? Why not? Because they're an individual and they want those mismatched socks, right? They feel absolutely adorable with that little crown on their head. And they're going to be them. Let them. And again, they want to wear the crown. They want to wear 2 different socks. Heck, they want to wear combat boots the first day of school. It's normal. Let them. They are trying to detach from you, right? They're going to need you more and more, less and less as time goes on. How many of you in the room have heard me do? Right? No, Mom, me do. No, Daddy, it's mine. I'll do it. Let them. Right? They're going to be getting in that car before you know it. So let them figure out how to be independent. Move them from you do for them to how do they do it for themselves. How do you make them independent? You're going to do it once for them. You're going to do it with them. And then you're going to teach them how to do it. And then you're going to let them do it. It's a natural cycle. We all go through it. Expand the range of choices. Let them pick out their clothes. Let them help with picking out dinner, right? Respect their choices. At the end of the day, unless it's harmful, unless they're going to get hurt or they're going to hurt somebody else, what's the big deal? Is it the end of the world? Right? Is somebody going to post a picture on social media that's not going to be flattering? Who cares? All right, and then you're going to do the fun things like assigning them small chores. And you can tell I like working with kids because I actually brought show and tell. You can have them do everything from help you with emptying the dishwasher, keep them away from the knives. One of my first favorites was having them match their socks, okay? Super simple, and you might hear a little bit more about this later, but it's also a great opportunity to have conversations, have them talk about the patterns, right? What different colors, and don't start them with the white socks, okay? And then when they decide they want to put these two together, right, because they think they're a pair, let them do it, right? Ask them, what makes these a pair? And they'll probably tell you, but they both have checks. Okay, that's all good, right? The other fun thing about having them do chores is it lets them tell stories, right? These have fun patterns. These kind of look like snowflakes. Maybe they'll talk you through what that looks like to them. It's an opportunity. And track what they're doing. Give them to-do lists. Or even better yet, sit down with them and put together that to-do list with them. What do they think the steps are to get something done? How cool that you're giving them that independence now, so that when they're adults, or better yet, they're going off to college, and they're in that dorm room and they have to do their own laundry, they know how to do it because you've worked with them to figure it out. Wrong line. All right. Here's one of the most important things. This is your kids' experience. They are in incredibly safe hands. You've got one of the best school systems in the country. You've got amazing people. Let them make this their experience. It's not about you. It's about your kid. It's about your individual kid. All right, set reasonable expectations. At this age, please don't overschedule them, right? right? You want to keep up with everybody. Again, back to social media. Oh wait, Johnny was at soccer today. Oh wait, now he's at hockey. Oh wait, my kid's a soccer. They're not. They're kids. They're starting this journey. Again, include them in the conversation. What do they want to do? What's important to them? And give them free time and downtime, because as you'll hear, their day is going to be scheduled, right? They're going from point E. Oh, time for lunch. Oh, time to go to recess. They don't get to decide. They're having people tell them all day. They're going to come home from school, and they're going to be exhausted, emotionally and physically. Figure out what they want to do. Again, you're teaching them that independence and how to move on to that next phase without you. And I think, all right, that's all I've got for you. I'm going to pass it back over to Chris, and good luck to everybody. You're going to rock this. Your kids are going to rock it, and just have fun with it.
So we know that often parents have questions regarding how their preschooler can be ready to head into their kindergarten year. And you're thinking about reading, and you're thinking about writing and math. So as Dr. Parenti introduced, we have a wonderful staff here of curriculum coordinators. They have put together the brochures that you can take if you miss them on the way in. They're on the table just outside the door. But those brochures lead you to some suggestions and some resources. They put that together to help ease your concerns. But they also wanted to share some of those ideas with you so that you can feel like you and your now preschooler are looking ahead and enjoying this time as they're preparing to be a learner with us here at our elementary schools. So we're going to start with Maura Furman. Maura is the East Assistant Principal, a lovely partner that I have in this work. And she is very knowledgeable in the area of literacy. And as Dr. Parenti mentioned, Kathy Grimes, our reading coordinator for the elementary grades, is not able to be here today. So Maura's going to speak to you about some ideas for keeping your child excited about reading.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. What an exciting time. Your preschoolers are out there enjoying their preschool days, but they are gaining excitement, getting ready for their big kindergarten days ahead of them. And as parents, I'm sure you are wondering, what can I do? What can I do to make sure that they're ready and have a smooth transition in terms of their academics? And in terms of reading, we have a wonderful quote up here. The single most important activity for building the knowledge required for eventual success in reading is reading aloud to your children. And that comes from Becoming a Nation of Readers, and that quote is from 1985, a while ago. Things haven't changed. The most important thing that you could be doing with your children at home is reading aloud to them. There is so much power into those experiences. And foundationally, it really is just about building joy of literature, the joy of reading. Because when they come into school, we start with building a reading life for them across their elementary years and into middle school and to high school, and that they leave New Canaan Public Schools as joyful readers. And that starts with you at home and reading every day so that we can carry that forward into kindergarten. Embedded in those experiences, you are working, whether you realize it or not, developing so many foundational skills that will set your kiddos up right for being successful readers. And one of those is just being aware of print, being aware of books, how they work, that reading goes from left to right, how a book is held, turning pages to continue the story. We call all of those concepts of print. And that's something kindergarten teachers look for when kids come in. That basic, how are they holding books? Are they interested in books? What is their interest in books? And when you are looking at materials to pick to read with your children, explore a variety of texts. And there are so many beautiful, wonderful picture books out there that have amazing stories that you can enjoy with your children. And find things that connect to their lives. I remember with my kids, I had 4 kids, 2 boys and girls, and my girls loved Tallulah's Tutu, right? There were a couple of books, and they would enjoy that story over and over again, hearing about her adventures with toe shoes and attending ballet lessons. And they really got into those stories. And the joy of those stories leads to other stories that are similar. So it's enjoying those conversations. Embedded in those stories is rich vocabulary. The vocabulary, talking about words, lingering over words and phrases, just all starts orally. And having them hear those, that rich language, they come to school, I like to say, with their backpacks full, right? They're ready to continue to talk about those words and see them in print. Also learn, just having an awareness of the alphabet, right? Alphabet books, environmental print is great for that. You know, you're in the car, you're at a stop sign, they see the big red stop sign talking about the features of that word, that it begins with an S, and an S says, it ends with a P, that P says P. It's just increasing their awareness. The other thing that you can do is have fun with language. Nursery rhymes, right? Songs, all of that, that rhyme and repetition, all of that helps to build that foundation of what we call phonological and phonemic awareness, right? Kids being able to hear the sounds in words before we introduce print at all. Just being able to hear the ending sounds in words, the beginning sounds in words, really sets us up right to begin to introduce that alphabetic principle, right? Some kids, that's easy. Other kids, they need repetition with it and play with it. Years ago, you're all too young for this, but back in the 50s, early 60s, there was that famous song, the name song, Bob, Bob, Bo Bob, and kids played with that. You can do that with your family. Kids have fun with that. All of that is just so valuable to set your kids up right for their beginning reading skills here. Fairy tales, traditional tales, those are perfect for basic concept of story, right? With characters and setting. They're predictable. They all end in a lesson. Having those conversations about the structure of a story, just again in a fun, engaging way, in a short, concise experience that matches sort of where they are developmentally in terms of attention, you really accomplish a lot. And, get out in the community. Access the library. There are story times in Elm Street Books. Talk to, take your kids there, explore books, and really it's just about you and your child building quality time together, and it's all grounded in reading and enjoying literature together. So if you can really build up those experiences at home, you will be setting your children up right for here, entering into kindergarten, so we can start to attach that print to those sounds that they're playing with, those letters, and making sure that getting them to know that letters are put together to make words, and words have meaning, and those words are put together in sentences, and the sentences really are, craft those wonderful stories. And we can't forget about nonfiction. We have those kids out there that are curious. They love trucks, they love dinosaurs, put books in their hands that are filled with pictures and captions, and feed their curiosity. This is an exciting time. I encourage you just to have fun with it, enjoy, relax, and your kids will come together all ready for us to begin our work with them. Thanks. I'll pass it on to our writing specialist.
So good morning. I was not sure about the weather. I live farther north and I had to use four-wheel drive to get down my street, but once I got into Ridgefield, it was nice and rainy, so I'll take that. As far as writing, I have 3 little tips for you. And the first one is that the best writers are avid readers. And it's that sense of story that that Maura talked about. It's that, how does a story go? And so one of the things that you can do is think about sitting around the campfire back in the day, telling stories over and over again. Sit around your fire pit when the summer comes and just tell stories, things that you remember, things that they remember. Remember the time when, and just have them telling stories. The second thing is the art of conversation. The art of conversation is becoming a sort of lost art. And when you think about conversation, what exactly does that mean? It means someone saying something, the other person is listening, there's etiquette involved, you don't interrupt, you know, and you say something back. And so that art of conversation is really important to develop. I would definitely say leave the electronics away from the kitchen table so that you can actually have conversations with each other. Don't let your child get away with a one-word answer. Have them try to answer incomplete sentences. Prompt them to say more. You know, tell me more. Or because, you know, I don't want to do that. Okay, because, and have them elaborate. Because we find that that when kids can elaborate verbally, they can elaborate in writing as well. And so ask questions, have them ask questions for clarification. Sometimes they say, I don't know, and I love, someone once told me this, and they said, well, what would you say if you did know? And sometimes kids actually can go ahead and answer you. And the third thing is the power of words. Build their vocabulary, try to use synonyms. I'm hungry, I'm ravenous, build their vocabulary in that way. Use rare words, words they may not know. I'll never forget, my niece was at my house one day and she said, Karen, can we walk around the perimeter of your yard? And I looked at her and what? I said to my sister, what are you doing with this kid? Well, she's a Princeton grad and writing musical scores now, but build that vocabulary because kids they're sponges. They pick up words everywhere. Some not so good that they pick up from us, but or that they hear. But anyway, I would make up words, use silly words, have fun with language. And most of all, just remember that writing development is on a continuum. And it has to do with fine motor skills, being able to grip and hold a pencil or a crayon, and that develops later in some children than in others. And it's about imitation, approximating language, and they model what we do. And so remember that every scribble tells a story. And if they've got a scribble, which I'm loving this little child in the front scribbling, every scribble tells a story. What is that? Tell me your story, because it doesn't have to be words, but again, it's promoting oral language. And so when you see them scribbling like that, be sure to ask them what it's all about. So anyway, let me turn it over to Nicole Graham, our math coordinator.
Good morning. We are so excited that you are here either joining our community or rejoining if you're already part of our community. And in terms of math, believe it or not, you are your child's first math teacher. And it's so important that your children see math everywhere, in everything that they do. And there's simple things that you are likely already doing with your children in terms of math. So it was already mentioned, doing simple tasks like laundry, sorting by color, by shape, by size. Are these mommy and daddy socks or these little Johnny socks? Things like setting the table. How many people are in your family? How many napkins do we need at the table for our families for dinner time? When you're going up and down the stairs, counting numbers as you go, making it fun, just making it part of your everyday conversation, talking about numbers and what they mean. One of my favorite games that my kids and I like to play, mostly when we're driving to school, is I Spy. And we put a twist on it. It's not just I spy something green. We'll say, I spy something yellow and round. And those are simple ways. My kids always ask to play those types of games. They love it. So it's just, again, looking for opportunities to involve numbers in everyday conversations. At this age, your children are learning to develop one-to-one correspondence. So they're putting a number to the object they're counting. When you're playing with blocks and toys, have your students count their toys and assign a number to each of those objects. My son was in kindergarten last year, and one of his favorite times of the day, still is, snack time. And so when he opens up his fruit snacks, we were always line up the fruit snacks, counting them together as we go, and he sorts them by color. Does he have more of the purple fruit snacks, his favorite? And once he eats all of his purple fruit snacks, he lines them up again. How many red fruit snacks do we have? So again, there's many simple ways of things in your child's everyday life where they're already incorporating that. And so children model what you do. If you're positive about math and about numbers, they will be too. So I encourage you to take a look at the pamphlet that we were given to you. There's ideas for games to play as a family, for some books to read, some online resources. We're here for you if you have any questions. You'll see on the pamphlet there's math specialists in each of the buildings. They are part of this community as well to answer questions as you go. We're excited to work with you not only next year in kindergarten, but also throughout your child's entire math community and their time in New Canaan. So we're excited to have you here, and we look forward to partnering with you.
Good morning, everyone. Good to advance this. I have the pleasure of getting to talk to you a little bit about some of the unique and wonderful characteristics that actually make a child ready for kindergarten. It's a magical time. I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with some of the things that we're going to talk about. We do know that children at this age are very active, energetic, and they have very short attention spans. They're slowly developing their eye-hand coordination, and you'll often see kids trying to stay within the lines with coloring, trying to throw a ball at a target to get that eye-hand coordination. They love to practice developing their balance, standing on one leg, riding a bike, riding on a scooter. And this is the time that they're actually developing their right and left-handedness. Sometimes they haven't actually decided on a dominant hand yet, but you can note what hand they take a crayon with, what hand they draw with, what hand do they eat with when they're or throwing a ball or kicking a ball, and it's often emerging at this time in their lives. Students at this age are often far-sighted and learning to focus on close materials, so you'll often see them practicing trying to sometimes tie their shoes. It's a nice time when you're out for dinner to play tic-tac-toe with them. They kind of get the hang of making those little X's and O's inside of a grid. And even getting an old shoelace or some yarn and stringing it through some old-fashioned macaroni is good for their eye-hand coordination as well. Frequently, they do reverse letters and numbers, so if you start to see kids who are actually printing or making letters, often the B's and D's will be reversed. That is very common for this age. And as we all know, kids this age have a very difficult time waiting for their turn, especially, that's why it's so important to play games, board games with them, to get them to learn how to take turns, learn to go around in a circle so everybody has a chance to play. And when I ask the teachers, what's the one thing you want all parents to know about kids being ready for kindergarten? And basically they say the biggest thing is to promote independence. Teach them how to zip their jacket. Teach them how to put their jacket on by themselves. Teach them how to put on their boots. Teach them how to button a shirt. Things like that. And that promoting independence is something that will carry through when they come into kindergarten as well. Next slide. So some of the social and emotional characteristics are, as you know, children of this age are very eager to please. They love to be silly. So the more silly you can be with them, the more actually you can get them to do what you want when you are silly with them. They love to help. They love to pretend that they're washing the dishes, even though they're getting more water on the floor probably than on the dishes. They love, as you've heard earlier, to set the table, have like a little Swiffer duster to pretend that they're helping you dust the house. They love praise, so talking about them when you know they're within earshot, to talk about something that they've done really well is really, really good for them. They are kids who think literally, and I like to tell this story, I tell it every year. One year as a principal, I was trying to find out how a student came to school that morning. Did mom bring you? Did you come on the bus? And so I said to him, how did you get to school today? And he turned to me and he said, through that door. And so we always laugh because it's about the questions that we ask, right? Because if we don't ask the right questions, we don't always get the right answers, because they do think very literally. They love to accept simple responsibilities, so maybe bringing their plate to the sink after dinner, or just even pulling up the sheets or the blankets on their bed, sort of pretend making their beds. They will often, and you will probably relate to this very well, they often exhibit extreme emotions and behavior. They can giggle, cry, squeal with delight, all within the same 20 minutes, right? And then they often need help tracking their belongings. So it's really helpful if in their rooms or in their playrooms, if they do have a place for everything so that they can learn to organize things and keep track of their belongings. And as we all know, this age is very imaginative. That is how kids learn. They love to pretend, they love to imagine, they love to imitate adults. And they love to act out stories. So sometimes they have their favorite book that they ask you to read again, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I've read this book 100 times. But that's how they learn. And then they start to act out the story, and they start to play with friends. They're learning to follow directions. They love to be, as I said earlier, the adults and give the directions. They often confuse fantasy and fact, and you probably have seen it with any of your little ones who are fascinated with Elsa, right? They love to be Elsa and sing like Elsa. They're starting to begin cooperative play, and you'll often hear children at this age, okay, you be the dog and I'll be the cat, or you be mom and I'll be dad. That's how they start that interactive play. They like being read to. Some great books for this age. I love the Elephant and Piggy books because I think it builds on that inferential thinking. There's not a lot on the page, but there's a lot that they have to understand by looking at the pictures to infer what the meaning of the story is. They love to play with language. The sillier nonsense rhymes, the sillier you can be, the better. They love that. And playing with language. And then just learning from the world around them. I think the best advice I ever got as a mom, and now I have 3 grandchildren, is to expose your kids to as much as you can, as often as you can. Just get them used to and learning about the world. And again, we all know that humor is the way that the brain learns. So the more humor you add into this age group to try to get them to do things, the more likely they are to be successful and just have a lot of fun with them. So. Whenever I have a stressful day, I love to go sit in a kindergarten classroom. It brings me great joy. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt Kaskak. Thanks.
I agree. Going into a kindergarten classroom will make you smile no matter what. I spent most of my classroom time teaching 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So when I started 19 years ago now at South, kindergartners were a new world to me, and it's been a really interesting one. But my favorite stories are when they call me Mom, or they call me Mrs. Kaskak. And I used to respond with, oh, Mrs. Kaskak is much prettier than I am. But of course that would go right over their head, and they just sort of look at me like, what are you talking about? So anyway, but yes, kindergartners just make you smile no matter what. I have the privilege of talking to you about safety in school, which I inherited from my predecessor, Joanne Rocca, who used to be in charge of the district level crisis advisory board. And we believe deeply here in Canaan Public Schools that unless our students feel safe, and all of us as lifelong learners, unless we feel safe, our mind is not going to be focused on what we need to be learning. So we start right at the district level. We have a district crisis advisory board that is comprised of not just people from the school district, but members of the police department, fire department, emergency services, emergency management in town, and then at every building we have a crisis or a crisis safety team. And we have an extensive crisis advisory booklet that helps us to manage our way through any types of crises that may come up. And luckily, we don't have that very often. And you'll see right from the beginning today, as I was standing out there, every one of you had to show your ID to get through the door. And that's number one. We only have one way into every building, and any visitors have to come through the front door of the building. We have campus monitors at every building who will be checking IDs regardless of whether you are the principal, will be wearing a district badge, or a teacher. If you're the PTC president, you need to show your ID every time you enter the building. We don't make exceptions. And that's just to make sure that we are staying on top of our game of safety. We do practice regular drills, going back to your days in school. I'm sure you all practice fire drills. I'm old enough to remember in kindergarten and first grade practicing air raid drills and having to hide under my desk. Not sure what that was going to do in 1968 if something was happening between Russia and the United States at that time. But we do practice drills, and when we talk about drills, first of all, we do not do any unannounced drills in New Canaan, so the children know about them ahead of time. And we talk to them in appropriate language for the grade level. So we are not trying to scare the students, we are just trying to make sure they're prepared if something happens and we have to either evacuate, if we have to lock down, whatever, we use appropriate language at the grade levels. Lunch and recess supervision. Most of this, all three schools have a kindergarten playground. One of my favorite parts of the fall is watching some of our kindergarten teachers out there trying to teach the kids how to use the playground structures appropriately, and you're trying to watch classroom teachers who've been teaching for about 27 years show them how to go down the slide appropriately. But some of the things you can do is start visiting the school that your child's going to go to, and go to the kindergarten playground, and even to the other playgrounds, but the kindergarten playground particularly, and talk to them about taking turns on the slide, so that, explain to them it's dangerous for 4 kids to go down the slide at the same time. We don't climb up the slide. Children are coming down the other way. If you're climbing up, you can get knocked off the slide. So teach them how to you can teach them how to use the playground equipment. Get them familiar with the playground equipment. We will do a lot of that in the fall once they visit as well, or once they come to school as well. But it certainly doesn't hurt to get them familiar between now and August when they come to school. As I said, we have campus monitors at every building. Most of our campus monitors have police background training. They will require photo identification of all people to sign in. We do ask you to sign out as well. So if we were in some type of crisis, we want to make sure we know who's in the building and who we need to be accounting for. This year, we were very lucky for years we've had SRO officers, school resource officers at the middle school and high school. We have a new officer who is a dedicated community liaison officer to the 3 elementary buildings. Officer Shane Gibson spends his time between the 3 buildings, visiting the buildings. If we have something, we also have liaison officers who have been around for a few years. For example, at South School, our liaison officer is Officer Roy Adams. He's on patrol and does his regular job, and every couple of days he'll stop in to make sure things are going well. If we are having an outdoor event, such as at the beginning of the year, the first week of school, we had an outdoor assembly. We talked to both Officer Gibson and Officer Roy, and they both made sure that they were on the premises that day because we had everybody outside. So we have a great relationship with the police department that helps us to have visible police presence when we need it, and also helps people feel more safe, the students, the staff, parents, etc. How can parents help? As I said, bring your children to the playground, get them used to the playground between now and the time that they start school in August. Help them to understand areas that they probably shouldn't go. Each of us have different playground areas, but remind them they should always be in eyes view of the adults who are supervising. We always have plenty of people on duty to supervise, and we always remind the students, if if you can't see us, we can't see you. So remind your child they should always be able to see an adult that's on duty supervising them. Health and wellness. As you know, the last couple of years have been a little bit crazy with COVID. We continue, even before COVID, we had hand washing stations throughout the building. Our nurses do lessons with classrooms on making sure that they wash their hands. We have additional hand sanitizing stations, which we have kept in place, and we will continue to keep in place. All schools have a full-time nurse at all times, and our nurses, as I said, will go into classrooms and do lessons based on what teachers feel that their class may need. We do have Board of Ed policy and guidelines around food allergies. If you have a child with a food allergy, or you have a child with an illness that's related to food, or diabetes, you would want to talk with the nurse, and the nurse will create an individual plan for your child, and we will go from there to make sure that your child is safe at all times regarding whatever their issue is with food. Illness policies. Obviously, again, the last 2 years have been a little bit crazy with that. We continue to ask parents to keep their children home if they are showing any signs or symptoms of illness. COVID's still around, flu's around, RSV's around right now this time of year. We have to play that against the fact that the state, in its infinite wisdom, also has laws about school attendance. Because we do believe that being in school in person is still the best way to learn. But obviously, if everybody's getting sick, then we're not going to have everybody in school. But, so we do have to play that against attendance, and I do know that sometimes those things can contradict each other. But at the elementary level, we certainly work with families when numbers of absences get high. What I would encourage you is to please try and stick to the school calendar and limit travel when school is in session, so that your students can be, your children can be in class when class is going on. Because there are going to be days they miss because they're sick. But then if they're missing 5 or 10 days because they've gone on vacations when school is in session, that's a lot of time that they miss from instruction. Again, with illness policies, if you have any questions, our nurses are fantastic. You can call the health offices and talk things through with them. They may refer you back to your doctor. At a certain point, you will be required, I think it's after the 9th absence, for any illnesses, to document that illness for it to be an excused absence. The nurse can be the person that documents that. So if you're on your 10th absence and your child wakes up with 101 fever, you may not take your child to the doctor to get a note. The state's going to require it to be verified by a licensed medical professional. Our school nurse can be that licensed medical professional. You just call the office, talk to the nurse about what's going on. Facilities. We continue to make sure that we have very good air circulation in our buildings. That was a very big positive, especially at the elementary levels during COVID, and we continue to monitor that. Obviously, the exchange of air really helps when you're in those seasons where there's a lot of germs going around. It goes back to washing your hands. Kids are taught how to cover their faces when they're sneezing or coughing. So all of that health and wellness goes along with the safety piece of this. And again, it doesn't hurt for you to teach them at home. They're going to cough into your arm, they're going to sneeze, and they blow their nose. They should go over and wash their hands after they've done that before they go back to their table to work with whatever they're doing with their classmates. See if I can do this right this time. Safety on the bus. And we'll talk more about this when we have parent orientations later in the year. But all of our kindergartners will get bus tags that say the day of the week and what way they go home, So some students will go home on the same way every day. So they may go home on bus 9 every day. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, bus 9, but perhaps they go to the YMCA on Tuesday and Thursday. We spent a lot of time that first month of school making sure that we know where every kindergartner is going to the right line to get on the right bus or go to the right vehicle. So please know that we spent a lot of time with that. Kindergartners on the bus sit in the first 2 or 3 rows. I do remember riding the bus many years ago, and the seats were much lower. I explain to students all the time now, the seats are high for a reason. And I say to them, what do you have in mommy or daddy's car that we don't have on the school bus? Seat belts. I don't understand the logic, not sure who made that decision. However, the seats are high enough, they're soft enough that if the bus driver has to brake quickly, if you are seated, you're going to go to a nice soft seat in front of you. You're not going to go over a short seat. So our number one rule is always safety on the school bus. Number one rule is always to stay seated at all times. So certainly that's something you can remind your children regularly. We do encourage you, if possible, please put your child on the bus right from the beginning. Number one, it reduces the amount of cars on campus, which of course is a safety issue in itself. If we have less cars on campus, we have less chance of anybody getting hurt. And it also is another time for children to socialize on the bus. Our kindergartners sit in the first 2 to 3 rows, depending on how many kindergartners are on any given bus. There are cameras on every bus, 7 cameras on the interior, and at least 1 on the outside. We go over bus evacuation and safety reviews with them. Usually in October, the buses will come over and we will go through bus expectation, behavior expectations on the bus, and all of the bus drivers go through all of the safety features of the bus with the students. We have ongoing bus driver training. I've never seen a district that has, our transportation director has been here for quite some time, and he is really fabulous at what he does. And he keeps up on things. If there's a problem, we can call him, and he will address something with the drivers right away. If he thinks it's something that all the drivers need to be trained on, he takes care of that right away. And again, how can you help? Remind your kindergartners that they should be seated in the first 2 to 3 rows. They're closest to the driver. Because those seats are higher and kindergartners are little, we want the driver to be able to see them. If they're going toward the back, they're not going to be seen because the seats are higher. And I think now I'm going to turn it back to Chris.
Okay, so we're going to move quickly into what to do and what to expect between now and start of kindergarten. I do want to let you know that this presentation will be on our district website. So I know some people have been taking notes, but rest assured, all of these slides will be on the website, so you can find them there. We did have note cards on the chairs. You may have been taking some notes on them. If you have questions, you are welcome to write those questions down on a note card as well. If you put your name and the building that your child will be attending, that's helpful. We'll collect them. We'll try to have some time for questions, but we do have kindergartners coming in for lunch shortly, and we have to have tables for them because they don't eat on these chairs. But let me share with you just some thoughts in terms of getting ready. And some of these ideas you've already heard, that idea of independence. The more that you can be doing at home to help your child with learning how to zipper, learning how to know in their lunchbox what's the important part of lunch that you start with, the sandwich or the pasta that you have. How to unzip the Ziploc baggies, how to open up those snacks. They feel confident when they feel that they can do that on their own, and it frees them during their day to focus on the learning and the work that they're doing in the classroom, and they know that they can open their water bottle, they can open their snack when that time comes. Also the idea that there's different behaviors or different rules, behavior expectations, different rules in different places. So at the dinner table, at the kitchen table in the morning, at breakfast, whenever it is that you're eating as a family, you don't raise a hand. You're having that natural conversation, and you want to have that. But in school, when there's a lot of children who all want to share their ideas, we do raise a hand. So helping them understand that different contexts may have different rules. And they'll learn those rules when they're here at school. Visit the kindergarten playground, visit the main playgrounds at each of our buildings. That's where children can feel really confident when they come into school. They know their favorite playground equipment, they know where they want to go and play when they're here. So it's something that you can do after school, throughout the spring, you can do it in the summer as well. Teach your child to use that playground equipment safely. I know the others were talking about that as well, those different rules and expectations. You may have a playscape at home that your child uses in one way, and you may have different rules here, just helping them understand that as well. And then get excited with your child about kindergarten. Take the lead from your child. And I know Judy was talking about this, that different children may have different ways of approaching a transition. And those of you who have other children may have already noticed that one child may be super excited and another child may be a little more nervous. And that's to be expected. Each child is different. Each of us are different as people. I think even as adults, we each navigate transitions in different ways. So be patient with who your child is. Be excited with them, but take your lead from them too. If they're not somebody who wants to talk about kindergarten every single day, that's okay. You can do it in more subtle ways. Well, let's go to the playground and let's read this story together. That's maybe a story about starting kindergarten. Thank you all for being here today because it shows that you're starting to think about this process. Hopefully you've completed the pre-registration form that we have on our district website. You also may have seen the QR codes. You may have noticed the laptops that we have. We're doing a lot to try to remind people to please pre-register because by doing that, you're helping us know that your child's coming to us. We can ensure then that we have staffing, that we have classrooms that are ready for the numbers of kindergartners that we'll have so that we have class sizes and class sections that can accommodate all the kindergartners that will be coming to us. And it allows you to then be in our system so we can send you emails to let you know about other events we have coming up this spring for parents, for you to be able to come to an orientation session, and for your child to come to an orientation session. And that, again, helps us to get to know your child and be ready for your child in the fall and what they need. So, completing the pre-registration form online today is the first step in that. Many of you may have already done that. Again, if you have not, please use the QR code or feel free to use our laptops here. You will then receive an email from NCPS with your PowerSchool portal account information. And it's important that you then go in, log into that PowerSchool portal, complete the registration forms there. Those are online. There are some other documents that you need to scan or as part of that registration process. And all of that is also sent to our district registrar, Laura Walsh. Here is Laura, live and in person. So if you do have questions as you're going through this process, please reach out to Laura. She is wonderful at guiding you through that. And she sits up at our central office, the registrar's office there. You will, in just a moment, see the dates of our parent orientations. They're held at each of the 3 buildings, so you'll be able to go to your child's school and have a parent orientation. We help you to get a sense of what is a day in the life of a kindergartner like. See parts of our buildings. Later, you'll get an invitation, or your child will get an invitation to come in the spring for a time to visit our school as well and have an orientation session with other entering kindergartners and meet some of our kindergarten teachers. Also, just keep in your mind that we do have health forms that need to be completed for your entering kindergartner. Those do not need to be completed before you register. They don't need to be completed before the orientation. We know that physicals happen at different times depending on your insurance and your child's birthdays. So just be sure, though, that those health forms are completed by August and submitted to us because we can't have your child begin the school year in August without those health forms being completed. Over the summer, be on the lookout electronically for a class placement letter, details about the first day of school. We'll talk more about that at the parent orientation as well, your bus transportation information, and welcoming messages from our PTCs. Each of the 3 schools have wonderful PTCs that we partner with. And finally, here are just a few important dates. Again, this will be on the website, but feel free to snap a photo now if it's convenient for you. These are the parent orientation days for each of the 3 elementary schools. And these dates are for parents only. And again, we'll walk through a day in the life of a kindergartner. We'll let you see some of the spaces in our buildings that your kindergartners will be using when they're here. They are at the end of March, and each of them start at 9:30. We will send to you later in the spring a date for your child to come for about a half-hour orientation session. That's where you come, they stay. You can head back out, have sort of half an hour to yourself, meet some other kindergarten parents. They get to meet some kindergarten teachers and some other entering kindergartners. We get to see them and interact with them. And then the first day of school, which will be here before we know it, and I think we're still waiting for winter to really come, is August 29th of 2023. And we'll talk more at the parent orientation about what that first day looks like for kindergartners. We try to structure it a bit so that they can have a nice transition into their year. That is all for us. We can take a couple of questions. We have just a few minutes before we have to have our custodians come in. If you wanted to jot any down on the note cards, if any of you have them jotted down, you can collect the note cards as well. And answer a few. Those questions.
Questions, raise your hand, and then certainly we can collect note cards and do like our frequently asked questions on our website.
We have class size. A question was about the current size of kindergartens. Our kindergarten classes follow the Board of Education class size guidelines for kindergarten through third grade, which are 16 to 20 students. It's a really nice size in terms of students being able to connect with other children, learning those social skills. It's a big part of kindergarten. Having to wait your turn, having to hear different perspectives of how someone else might be thinking differently, having lots of different peers that they can connect with and build friendships with, but also being a size where a classroom teacher can work with small groups and give students one-on-one attention, as well as a whole group experience. It really depends on the enrollment. So we are very fortunate that we're able to stay true to those class size guidelines. So depending on the number of registrations, that's how we then determine the number of classes. At this time, East School has 6 kindergarten classes this year. West has 5 and South has 5. But that varies some. Last year, East School had 5 kindergartens because that's what the enrollment numbers had. That's why it is so helpful that you're pre-registering, because it allows us to start to look at those numbers. We start tracking them now. So if you have neighbors, friends, please check with them if they have kindergarten. So did you register? Did you pre-register? That just helps us to make sure we have the staffing and we can keep those class size guidelines where they need to be. We won't have the class placements done at that time because we still have registrations. That class placement happens all across the summer as well because other families are registering. But at that orientation session, your child will meet with all of the kindergarten teachers that we have. So they'll be there, and that allows the visiting children to get a lot of one-on-one attention in those orientation sessions, and it allows them to see all the kindergarten team. And it allows you to know who those kindergarten teachers are. If there are other questions, please jot them down on the note cards. Dr. Parenti's here, she can collect them, and we'll take a look at all of them. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to meeting your kindergarten.